Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And we often talk about China on this channel and the manner in which they will colonize South Africa in years to come. And I think that's kind of a done deal, quite honestly, but we'll see. Time will tell. So when the Chinese ambassador speaks up about South Africa, it's worthwhile listening to what he has to say. Well, just this week, China's ambassador to South Africa, Lin Sontieng, said the following. He said he always speaks highly of South Africa, but he is the master of the backhanded comment. He's reportedly connected to the highest echelons of his government, and he manages to convey tough messages to Pretoria, wrapped in layers of praise. Why does he speak highly of South Africa? Well, because 20 years ago, South Africa was much better than China. You know, that's just after the ANC took power. 10 years ago, when I passed through here on my way to Malawi to become ambassador, you were then a little better than China in terms of infrastructure, market mechanism, the judicial system, and so on. And then he added, as if as an afterthought, but in the past 10 years, we have gone so far ahead of you. So what he was really saying was that while South Africa was far ahead of China 20 years ago, and still slightly ahead 10 years ago, in infrastructure, governance, and attractiveness of its business environment, it now lags far behind. Some compliment. Some of his Western counterparts value Lin because they say Chinese coziness with Pretoria allows him to publicly criticize the South African government, as they dare not. He always does so after stressing the long friendship between the ruling parties of both countries and talking about South Africa's huge potential. During his speech at a reception in Pretoria to celebrate last week's 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China, Lin enthused under the leadership of President Cyril Ramaphosa. South Africa is embracing a new era of development and renewal. Good luck with that. He said, China is ready to share the fruits of its development and huge market with South Africa. Promote our cooperation to join your great efforts to become a locomotive and production base for Africa's industrialization and modernization, and achieve win-win cooperation for common development so as to deliver more benefits to our two countries and to peoples. This is China speaking, so you've got to take it with a pinch of salt, guys. But in most of his recent statements, Lin has also delivered a sterner underlying message that if South Africa hopes to attract the further Chinese investment, or indeed any foreign investment, that it needs to resuscitate its stagnant economy. It has to renovate its infrastructure, including revitalizing the governance of state-owned enterprises. Well, before you can do that, you've got to get rid of corruption, incompetence, and a little thing called BEE. Otherwise, it ain't going to happen. In essence, Lin's point has been that South Africa has great potential, but it is not realizing it. That's not an original observation, but it's rare, probably unique, to hear it publicly stated by a foreign diplomat. At that seminar in April this year in Pretoria, Lin made clear that China was impatient for South Africa to join Chinese President Xi Jinping's immense Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, which is connecting China to Europe via elaborate development corridors, including one through Africa. He noted that despite signing an agreement with China to join the BRI, South Africa has not yet undertaken a BRI infrastructure project. Yet South Africa, because of its location between two oceans, its sophisticated financial and judicial systems, and its infrastructure, was ideally placed to be the main gateway to Africa, and also the production base for the continent's industrialization and agricultural modernization. And guess what that infrastructure is based on? Everything that happened pre-1994. And when he talks about South Africa going backwards over the last 20 years, that's under the ANC government, under their watch. But you got to blame it on Jan van Riebeck, don't you? Never our fault. It could thus become the pilot country which the BRI needed in Africa, and he's talking about South Africa. China had built and financed the railway line from landlocked Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, to the Red Sea port of Djibouti, and another track from Mombasa to Nairobi, with a further stretch from Nairobi onto Uganda and Rwanda being planned, Lynn said. Now, let's remember that railway line between Mombasa and Nairobi was funded by the Kenyan government with a loan from the Chinese. And what actually happened there, this is very interesting. This is how debt capture works. And what happened there was that Kenya could not repay the loan to China. So China said, that's okay, we'll take over the asset. So what happened now is that China owns the railway line between Mombasa and Nairobi. And it also owns the port of Mombasa. And that's part of the BRI. But of course, that's not said in the statement by the Chinese ambassador. And if they could do the same in South Africa, they would, believe me. And I think that's where Eskom is a very enticing target. Lynn's dream was that the third major African corridor would be in South Africa, making Limpopo to Johannesburg and thence the coast at the ports of Durban and Richards Bay. This would be the perfect inaugural BRI project for South Africa. Lynn was also clear that building that corridor would be in China's own economic interest because it would more quickly move the copper from its PMC mine near the Limpopo town of Palabora to market. He noted that the PMC mine had been originally owned by the Anglo-Australian mining giant Rio Tinto, which decided to close it. A Chinese consortium stepped in to buy it in 2013. That had saved 5,000 jobs, Lynn said. And by investing in new technology, the Chinese company had extended the potential life of the mine to 2038. He went on to say, but the manager and the CEO have cried to me saying that they have mine production, but the transportation is a big challenge. The railway you have, I'm sorry to say, is too old and too slow. And so Chinese investors who had promised to sink $10 billion into the PMC had now become cautious, not only because of the old and slow railway service, but also the unreliable electricity. Thank you, Eskom. And also the inefficiency of Durban Port. All the protests and the riots, yep. You got it in one. China's growing wariness about the state of South Africa's state-owned enterprises seemed to have been confirmed shortly after this when Finance Minister Tito Mboweni disclosed that the first 7 billion rand tranche of 35 billion rand loans to Eskom from the Chinese Development Bank, or CDB, would not be paid over in March as scheduled. This forced Mboweni to draw on emergency funding to keep the cash-strapped power utility solvent. Mboweni suggested CDB had withheld the 7 billion rand because of red tape. But energy expert Chris Yellen suggests the real reason was that CDB was disturbed that Eskom evidently needed the money to maintain its cash flow, whereas China had offered the loan for financing capital development. Lynn later implicitly confirmed this latter interpretation by stating that the CDB, like the investors in PMC Mine, one could add, had become nervous about Eskom's ability to repay the loan. Eskom is a debt trap, Lynn told Reuters in August. China gave them some loans before, and now they have become very cautious. Eskom is not an issue of money, it's an issue of the operations, mechanisms, management, and capacity. Operative word there is management. The drawdown of the 7 billion rand tranche of the loan, delayed beyond the scheduled payment in March, was eventually paid. Eskom's spokesperson Nto Rakotso told the paper. Subsequently, drawdowns have also been effected as per the drawdown schedule, he added, but refused to detail the schedule or the payments. Going beyond Eskom, Lin explained to Reuters why China, despite having stimulated a boom in infrastructure development in other African countries over the past decade, had undertaken no major infrastructure project in South Africa. It was because Chinese investors were looking for more than mere concept of a project or government incentives and tax breaks, he said. They also wanted to see favourable investment conditions enshrined in an investment law approved by Parliament, as well as feasibility studies capable of reassuring the Chinese government and banks of the profitability and sustainability of the proposed projects. What they're actually talking about in China speak is the colonization of South Africa. Ramaphosa was the last hope for the South African economy, Lin said, but to realize that hope, he would have to turn concepts and incentive policies into laws and concrete infrastructure. Lin was asked at China's recent National Day whether he was still concerned about Pretoria's governance, especially of SEOs like Eskom, or did he now feel that it had begun to address those shortfalls? He said, "Everyone understands that the state-owned enterprises are key to support economic development in any country, especially in China and South Africa. If they can stand strong, it's key, it's very beneficial and conducive to sustainable development." He said, "I'm sure President Ramaphosa and his government are paying very high attention to the state-owned enterprise reform and will revitalize the SOE enterprises to get ready for the big jump for development. We are very confident in this country," he said, "because of South Africa's three unique strengths for development: its rich resources, its strategic geography, and its relatively good infrastructure." Notice the word relatively good. Not good anymore. He concluded in saying, "Of course, now you have South Africa facing some challenges, like the railway, the electricity, and so on. If you want to have development, you have no choice. You have to get ready with your state-owned enterprises. China, as a strategic partner in this country and this continent, has not come here to complain. We come here to work together to see where is the problem and how we can find a solution to work together to solve that problem. China is ready. If you're ready, we're ready to work together with South Africa and the continent for yourselves, for sustainable development. That is our common journey." Well, maybe the best thing that's happening is that the state-owned enterprises are in a state of chaos. It might just stop the Chinese rush into South Africa and the takeover for a few more years. All right, guys, please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video. Please share this video. And above all, stay safe. Bye for now.